Templars used skull and bones, and so did the SS on their uniforms. It's a very good point that occurred here. Then we have a 3-hour-long tape, the terrestrial component of the alien presence on the secret Illuminati projects, known to the public as the new and ultimate threat, the alien threat. After the collapse of the Russian bear, they urgently need a new threat. Oh boy, how urgently they need a new long-term threat. The Echo threat is the sister to the alien threat, the Mickey Mouse alien threat, and we'll talk about this in the lecture. But this tape covers basically 1 century of Illuminati super black research and development projects in anti-gravity, space flights, mind control, and human genetic engineering that have been conveniently covered up behind real alien visitations on the planet. Hundreds of races visit us each year, but behind that there is a very substantial illuminated component of terrestrial developments that it's very easy for them to explain away as all alien, being all alien. And in that tape we would make the claim that the little greys are the government-developed biological robots or cyborgs, the little Igors of the underground gulag of government Frankenstein factories, as Anthony Hilder calls them. And also we have a lot of papers. I wouldn't go through all of the papers. Basically, all of this material is very well represented in different papers. And now we can go on with our slide presentation. If we can turn on the projector, please. In the back, the button goes upward. On the back of the back, rightmost, up and up and up and up. To the top. Excellent. After the tabloid sources, let's summarize the first step. I was back tracing my quote-quote discovery of anti-gravity through the anthropology of myth approach. I just did a big file and I put there all the stories about anti-gravity that I could find. And in the first step we went over my sources from ancient astronaut accounts, from modern day contactee cases. Actually we'll go through the contactee cases right now. Biblical and ancient revelation prophecies, revelations, modern day revelations like the Urantia book and the Waski book and the Billy Meyer Chronicles. We talk about the secret symbology, the meanings of the swastika as a swirling whirlwind of etheric energy, and the Star of David that have much deeper physical meaning than just being a symbol of a political movement on our planet. And now we will be talking at length about more hardcore evidence, academic evidence. And we started with a case of academician Nikolai Kozyrev from the Pulkovo Observatory. He died in '87, who did incredible experiments with spinning gyroscopes. In this very simplified photograph, I have a red gyroscope here that is spun in motion by a very simple electromagnetic device. The gyroscope is balanced on a precision laboratory scale, and let's say it weighs 100 grams before spinning. We spin the gyro and we measure the weight again, and if it spins leftwards, it weighs 95 grams. If it spins counterclockwise in the other direction, it weighs 92 grams. Academician Sakharov went a step further. As a true Russian patriot who cannot do an experiment without involving vodka or tea, he decided to add the variable of a strong Russian tea to the equation, and to his astonishment he discovered that if the already spinning gyro that weighs, let's say, 95 grams, you approach the gyro without touching it with a cup of hot Russian tea, the moment you drop a sugar cube in the tea and start mixing the tea and having the tea dissolve, the gyro whoop drops down with another 5 grams. Incredible result. That can be done by dropping few spoonfuls of cold water into a cup of hot water, not necessarily sugar on it. Hot water mixing in cold water. These are time-wise unidirectional processes. You can dissolve a cube of sugar, you can't do the other ways around to get the sugar out of solution and produce the cube from the viewpoint of physics, without expending energy, of course. You can distill the water, boil the water out and get the sugar, but the universe goes in the direction of sugar dissolving, the dissolution. This is a non-reversible thermodynamic process from the viewpoint of physics. It cannot be reversed in time. Like frying the egg. After we fry the egg, we cannot put it back in the shell. And all such processes appear to influence gravity by strange reasons that even Professor Kozyrov wasn't very sure about at the beginning. After that, he arrived at a very general theory about gravity that has been experimented with by several other Russian academicians, and they do the experiments right now. De Palma, another scientist with background from MIT and Stanford, and teaching experience at MIT. He was a physics lecturer at MIT. He started investigating 20-30 years ago the problems of rotation, and particularly the rotating unipolar or one-pole Faraday generator, Faraday dynamo. There is a copper disc sandwiched between two magnet discs, magnet donuts, spun on a shaft, and you have two brushes. One brush is touching the shaft, the other brush is touching the periphery of the disc, and a potential difference of 1 volt appears here. Unlike normal generators that have drag because the magnetic field of the rotor acts like a magnetic glue dragging with the magnetic field of the stator. And it's very difficult to turn them, and that's why all the power of the turbines driving the generators in the electrical stations, a lot of it goes for overcoming this drag. Unlike that, this generator you can spin by hand and there is no drag. Basically the drag is zero, whether there is load or there is no load. No physicist can explain that. Current physics, as we know it, the party line university academic physics cannot explain that.
There's no cutting of lines of force by that generator.
Exactly. It probably cuts the etheric lines of force of the planet, but there is no ether, according to modern science. So, ergo, this generator cannot exist. And if it does, the guy's a crackpot. And off goes De Palma out of the university. So his experiments involved collision experiments where two cartridges loaded with weights, one will be with a gyro, another one just with a weight, will be collided with each other. And when the gyro spins and when the gyro doesn't spin, this gyro cartridge behaves as if it has different mass. So spinning obviously influences the mass of that cartridge. This carriage, this is a very simple wheel carriage. They do this is a high school physics we're talking about. You collide two things and then measure the impulse, measure the momentum, measure the velocity and so on. When the gyro spins and when the gyro doesn't spin, the carriage behaves as if it has a different mass. Then he put a gyro on a pendulum and started swinging it. And the pendulum has its frequency of swinging, which is constant. The height of the swinging can change, but the frequency remains constant. That's why we can measure time, because of this fundamental and unexplainable property of the pendulum. And it can be basically demonstrated with formulas, but nobody knows why these things happen. These are the most fundamental secrets of nature. Even the Platonians don't know why electricity flows. What electricity is, they can use it far better than we do, but even for them it's a big puzzle. So this pendulum swinging with the gyro spinning and not spinning, it has different frequency. It means that again the mass changed. Then, if you approach an electric clock, quartz clock, next to a spinning gyro, it lags, increases dramatically. It starts lagging behind by like 15 seconds a week instead of 1 second a month or something like that. If we approach a spinning gyro with a tuning fork, the tuning fork changes its pitch, which again, here in the form of the pitch, the mass of the fork is involved. So obviously the spinning gyro affects space-time continuum around itself and every object that's nearby. So that's the conclusion of Bruce de Palma's experiment, that rotation changes mass and weight. There was a brilliant article in the Flying Saucer Review Journal, a little bit of contactee accounts, that basically found that majority of the saucers observed spin, or something spins. Either the whole house spins or the outermost part of the house spins. Or if nothing spins outside, you would hear the noise of an electric generator or an electric drill, which are spinning electric machinery. If you don't hear any noise, you would see lights spinning around the craft. When the craft takes off, the frequency of spinning increases. Also, the lights may change their color because of the frequency of the light changing. So, this initial hunch that I had many years ago, that because of the rotational symmetry, maybe spinning is involved, was greatly reinforced here when I found an article by professional ufologists. Flying Saucer Review magazine is one of the top British and probably one of the top 5 world UFO journals, investigative journals, and I greatly admire everything they do. Not as good as Physical Review Letters, professional academic physics journal, but in the marginal schizoid reality of UFO literature, this is probably the best there is. And so I was astonished to find something that I had heard so many years earlier, that basically spinning may be associated with flying saucers. Then I went to my massive UFO contactee database. In the book and film, the film is called UFOs, It Has Begun. The book is called UFOs Past, Present, and Future. They talk about a San Diego dock worker that asked his aliens, how the hell do their saucers fly? And they say, oh, it's very simple, it's a flying electric motor. The rotor, the red one, spins one way according to along a vertical axis. The whole stator, the blue one, spins the other way. And the cabin on top is gyroscopically stabilized so that the pilots would not spin into insanity with the cabin. Such a construction explains the crop circle whirlwinds, which is a field of rotating electromagnetic and etheric vortex under the anti-gravity drive of the craft, which is basically an electric motor. If we have a big electric motor, flat motor, spinning over growing grass, I wouldn't be amazed that the grass would assume the same crop circle type formation, even with the a lot lower intensity of the field of an electric motor. We can't produce, at least our official science and technology cannot produce such strong fields as you can produce under an anti-gravity drive. So one of the contactee accounts talks about anti-gravity saucers being powered like an flying electric motor. This is a very interesting contactee account from Red China. And here, unlike in Britain where the crop circle is on the surface, on the ground, here the drive of the craft affects space-time and the atmosphere in such a way that we have a circle formation on the underside of the craft. we have a white and a black forces chasing each other in a kind of a never-ending yin and yang frenzy, ever chasing and never reaching each other. This is a rotational dipole. The yin and yang is basically a rotational dipolar vortex. I've seen also a triple yin and yang, where three entities are changing each other in a circle. This is a rotating tripole. The swastika is a very simplified representation of a rotational quadrupole of four poles, plus minus, rotating. We would see very soon that this is exactly the case. Some Russian experiments prove that the swastika is basically a representation of their quadrupolar anti-gravity drive. Another contactee report, UFOs contact from the planet Ayarga.
Star Trek. Looks like some of the figures.
This is a creature that appeared from. On some of these things, you may make a close in.
I'm full-time on it.
Can you do it with a remote?
Yep.
Fascinating. And these are creatures that evolved from amphibians. Incredible swimmers, can swim 5 times as fast as we do. Have very sturdy skulls because there the G-force is 2 times as strong as ours, and the height of a deadly foe is just 60 centimeters. If they fall from more than 60 centimeters, they die. Here, deadly foe is about 2 floors high. Well, one story, maybe 2 story, depends how. Anyway, incredible book. The contactee was an architect and an engineer by training, so he left brilliant drawings. I mean, he retained most of what he saw in one day holographic presentation aboard this alien craft that he was taken on from his boat in Holland. And what this guy described is a very detailed 3-dimensional cutout of their saucer craft, as big as Queen Mary. This is 300 yards diameter. Giant craft that they use to navigate the universe, but doesn't have superluminal velocity. So basically these are like flying cities. They would fly many generations in them, exploring different planets and stars. And the key component of this craft are these donuts, these rings on the periphery of the craft, these two and this triangular cavity. The triangular cavity and these two donuts. These two donuts are counter-rotating synchrotron rings. It's fascinating.
Do they have to rotate, or can they just send particles around?
Now, what the guys figured out, that instead of spinning the whole hull of the craft, instead of spinning brute mass, a lot of tonnage at slow RPMs, you can spin at high RPMs a very little mass, and you would arrive at the same product. It's mass time RPMs. So instead of spinning the whole craft in a very inefficient drive, all the bearings would wear down, as was the case of the first German saucers. They would keep the craft stationary, and they would spin few elementary particles in these two rings at near relativistic speed. So basically their weight is almost nothing, but the speed is almost everything, so they get the same effect. Again, we have spinning. If we can't spin the brute mass of the craft, we can spin a magnetic field like these electric motor. Well, it's a combination, because the magnetic field spins, but also the mechanical part of the electric motor spins. There have been patents in Germany in the 30s for creation of a spinning magnetic field with a stationary non-spinning hardware. So if you go a step further, you don't even have to have an electric motor to create a spinning magnetic field. You would have some sections that would be turning on and off and on and off in a circle, and they would create a spinning magnetic field. I mean, this is technology that has been in the patent office since the 30s. Here the IRGANs are spinning elementary particles. I heard another story government contactee that what they did was they got a big quartz crystal, a cylinder of a crystal, then they got a metal, a magnet wire of a magnetic material, and they wound some electric conductor over this magnetic long bendable wire, whatever, like a thin sausage. They wound the electric conductor around it and they obtained an electromagnet. Then this pliable electromagnet was wound around this big quartz crystal, which resembles, by the way, a millstone. This is probably where the story of that millstone in the Mahabharata legend came from, or maybe there are countless other physical ways to create such a millstone resembling saucer drive. But anyway, when the magnetic, basically it's kind of a linear magnet, this magnetic wire is wound around the quartz crystal and then we have the current over it, it would help all the electrons and maybe even the nuclear particles inside to orient themselves and start spinning along the vertical axis, because if they are oriented in all chaotic different directions, it cancels all these chaotic directions of spinning. They cancel each other and the net effect is zero. So that's why things wait on the planet. Otherwise, if they didn't cancel anything, they wouldn't weigh anything and they would fly away from the planet. Whoever created the world thought that, well, we have to keep the buggers on the planet. If they start floating freely in space, we would lose them. So that's why in normal crystal objects, all these spins, all these little rotations of electrons and nuclear particles and everything are oriented chaotically in every direction. But if we can reorient them in the same vertical direction, vertical, then we obtain what what the Ayargans did with their drive. They were spinning few elementary particles in a synchrotron ring in the quartz crystal. They don't inject, the electrons are already there in the crystalline lattice of the quartz crystal. They just have to reorient them and to spin them in a desired direction. So you can spin the particles along a giant loop around the craft, or you can spin the particles, many particles, along the nuclei of the atoms. I mean, the universe is so boundless, and there are so many ways, different ways of producing anti-gravity. I repeat, the Pleiadians discovered 1600 basic modes of anti-gravity propulsion in their wanderings through the universe, and they have on their computers identified 1,800,000 civilizations. And among them they have 1,600 basic different propulsion modes. Here in this lecture we will touch upon probably 20 or 30. So this is a drawing of the Ayargan drive, the synchrotrons, the blue one spinning clockwise and the red one spinning anti-clockwise. A Russian contactee, a colonel from the Red Army, was told by his aliens after they gave him a joyride in their craft that, oh, it's very easy to produce anti-gravity. It's a spinning nuclear reactor. You have a big nuclear reactor along a very powerful shaft spinning around, and by lowering or pulling out of the control rods, you regulate the anti-gravity force of the drive. The reactor is spun around by solar energy, and it spins constantly, probably along ideal bearings that don't wear and tear and the RPMs don't die down. So by pulling out the rods, the saucer rises. By dropping down the rods, the saucer lands. And there is a smaller second nuclear reactor perpendicular to the first one that would push in this direction so that the saucer would fly horizontally parallel to the surface of the planet. Another case of rotation. A third contractee case, the UMO craft, a contract in Spain, talks again about some electromagnetic cavities along the periphery of the craft, a donut-shaped electromagnetic cavity. They don't give much details, but I wouldn't be amazed that this is a system very similar to the Ayargan system of counter-rotating, tuned beams of elementary particles. Go-Breeze, the government party line contacts with a politically correct little grade. They have, these are iron drive craft because when they land, they sinter and they bake the ground so that no grass can live, can grow there for more than a year. The electromagnetic drives not only do not bake and sinter anything, but crops continue to grow without even developing a burn on them. They just bend horizontal and start growing horizontal. So even in the iron drives, we see that the drive has some circle to it. Whether this is a condenser plate coupled, this is not the light, this is the drive system. This ring and the thing creates a very powerful light. It may also be an electrostatic condenser type anti-gravity. But we will not go. I'll go over this in the book that I'm finishing right now. I mean, there's so much about anti-gravity drives. One can easily write 1000-page monograph just going briefly over them. When these iron drive craft land, they burn and sinter the ground, and it remains here.
Twisted grasses.
Yeah. Sometimes they will produce ice in midsummer, 1 inch to 2 inch thick ice, due to condensation, rapid condensation of vapors, or due to creation of the ice out of the ether. Basically, the angel dust that falls off flying saucers is a byproduct of their saucer drive that creates objects out of thin air, out of the ether, the way the yogis can create gold objects or other things. The adepts, like Sai Baba, can create objects out of thin air.
One of the signatures of free energy machines is cooling things down quite a bit, and maybe that's a signature from a free energy type drive too.
Very good point. Cooling down may be a signature of a free energy type drive, as it is a signature of the free energy machines. Again, we have a Go-Breeze craft, and we see the drive a circular shape. Here, this is a detail that nobody has observed so far. From Bud Hopkins' book, his first contracting case, the landing track, this is how his research started. He realized that, and this is not a figment of the imagination, if you have a big spot of grass in your backyard that stays there for several years. What I discovered that nobody else has discovered, here on the photograph there is another jet that goes in this direction. This is a direction tangential to this disk. My suspicion is that just before takeoff they fired a shot of some energy in this direction and another one in that direction in order to spin the disk in order to take off. Because this could have been in a radial fashion, it could have been in any other angle of all the other possible angles, which are quite many here. This is in a tangential direction. It could be a jet of energy that was used to spin the drive of the craft before takeoff. Another circle of an iron drive. After the contract he reports, there are a lot of a lot of inventor stories and reports about anti-gravity.